What's up, everybody? It's Brian the Grizzly here with Dr. Waller. We're here talking about sinners. I felt like this was a perfect opportunity to bring my father on and have a conversation about something that I thought that was a much deeper movie that meant a lot more. And I thought that bringing someone who was very thoughtful about what they're talking about would be very helpful for us. So I wanted to bring him in. Hey, Des, talk to the people. Say hi.
Hey, everybody! It's always good to come and be on the show and talk about these different movies and things. So we definitely look forward to it.
Well, check him out, guys. He will be releasing his own show very soon. He's going to do a lot of different type of content, just the way he sees things, his perspectives. And I think it's a wonderful idea. So, of course, I'm going to put, in the description, I'm going to give him all his credit. I'm going to make sure that you push you guys towards him, but check him out. There's going to be a lot of fun things. I watched some of it and I'm like, ooh, yeah. So, it's going to be good. But we're going to kind of go over Sinners. I want to kind of read a synopsis before we get going. So here we go. It says, in Ryan Coogler's movie Sinners, Michael B. Jordan is playing twin brothers Elijah Smoke and Elias Stack Moore, who are World War I veterans returning to their Mississippi hometown. They attempt to open a juke joint, but face challenges, including a supernatural threat in the form of vampires and the realities of Jim Crow laws. The film explores themes of freedom, racism, and the consequences of the past sins. So, of course, we have Michael B. Jordan starring. We have Miles Canton, who played Sammy, who was a big part of this whole entire movie. He's a sharecropper and a pastor's son who's deeply connected to a lot of the music. He dreams of becoming a blues musician. So the twins kind of fanned that fire. They gave him a guitar, try to bring him in to perform at the juke joint for the first opening night. And there's a lot of other characters there with them, but overall, this is it's a great family type of movie too. Like they involved all their families. You got to remember that they're cousins. So I thought that was an interesting part of it too. In the town was really close. I mean, when they brought in their friends, they went and got cornbread to work the door. They had Grace and Grace Child. She came with them to help to provide the fish. You had Jamie Lawson, who was Perlene there. Delta Slim, who was probably one of the better blues players in the entire town. Everyone knew. He brought a lot of stuff into that. It was just, and then Wumi Musaku, she was amazing in herself. The idea between her and Michael B. Jordan was amazing. Sammy and Annie were like goals type of things, and that was really interesting. Of course, we got Haley Steinfeld. I don't want to forget about her, but man, it was awesome. So, with all that being said, Dad, what are your thoughts on Sinners?
Boy, this was a very enjoyable, exciting, little horror, but a really, really good movie that made you, enjoy the ride. It was really good story. However, I would say that one thing about this is that it has a lot of layers. It does, and historical issues, racial issues, diversity issues, family issues, so many issues. I wouldn't say, this is more for a mature audience. But as far as all of the different themes throughout this movie, it is a movie that you definitely wanted to see and spend some time thinking about it, because it's really meaningful, because it's historical too. So it has a lot of content to it, but it's enjoyable also.
What type of historical things did you think it really highlighted at?
Well, I saw a variety of things. First of all, it's the setting is in Clarksdale, Mississippi, in 1932. Mm-hmm. So therefore, we have a lot going on at that time in our history. You have Jim Crow going on. Mm-hmm, you have the presence of the KKK. You have
the Great Depression.
The Great Depression.
And I even thought about the idea of the fact that the twins had all that cash. So that cash, which is just something goes with the Great Depression. It didn't affect a lot of Black people, because Black people couldn't put their money in banks. So they had cash, and then having that cash, of course, they'll take advantage of try and take that money and then try to kill you afterwards.
Right. So I mean, you also had sharecropping and the Great Migration. You had the Black church and Black spirituality. You had all of these things, you know, at the same time, because Clarksdale was the place many consider the crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
The crossroads roads where Robert Johnson made that decision where he was going to make the deal with the devil to
It's
become.
really interesting because everyone knows I'm a big Supernatural fan. I'm a big anything to do with those type of crossroad demon type of things, because you can sell your soul for greatness, or you could decide to just live your life the way you want to live it. And
Mhm.
that's kind of where you're going with this, because in Supernatural you always see it's always a blues player. He's probably the greatest blues player ever. People don't know how he became this good, and all of a sudden 10 years later something happens to them because they sold their soul to the devil. So I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's what you're kind of going off that story, which is the
Yeah.
real story. What you're actually talking about, the real story about
Right.
it. Yeah.
But and that's the underpinnings, you might say, of this movie. It sort of gives you an atmosphere to, oh, this is what's going on, and you can better understand that, because really it's a movie of choice and free will. What decisions you're going to make, because you're going to have to make those decisions, and what are you willing to pay for it?
That's huge.
Yes, and that's really, like I said, underneath all of it, you know, how you gonna make that deal, whether you're gonna run from the devil or deal with the devil, all these types of things is really underneath this movie, but set in, again, in the United States, in Mississippi in 1932, with all Jim Crow and all these other things going on. So definitely historically it was just, you know, a excellent period to really to pick in order to actually explore some of these issues.
Ideas. Mm-hmm.
Yes, to explore them. So that's really some of the, you know, historical, you know, ideas related to, especially that Great Migration, when you see the twins leaving and coming back, you know, and migrating to, of course, Chicago. So it's going to be very interesting.
Working for Al Capone.
Working for Al Capone. Exactly. And
so World War I veterans going working for Al Capone, being gangsters ever. They were already gangsters. People were already afraid of them in their hometown. They were already that. Then the United States decided to go ahead and use that gangsterness. And then Al Capone saw like, hey, we'll use that gangsterness too.
Because there was two of them, not just one. It was two. And they knew, especially since they were twins, which is Smoke and Stack, you know, and being able to work together and know each other so well, they knew how to plan and to act with each other. So it made them extra dangerous.
They knew each other because when you put them together, they become one unbelievable person, or you can use them to get separately to kind of swarm everybody, because you don't see it from you're looking at the right, you're not paying attention to the left. You're looking at the left, you're not paying attention to the right, and they can get everybody. And that's exactly what they did. They're amazing.
You know, I thought that was a great choice to have twins, you know, especially
of course,
since
you're a twin.
I'm an identical twin. So for them to have chosen a twin, I was like, that is a really excellent choice, because it really shows how, boy, they know each other so well, you know, and it also shows the different sides of people, you know, like this person is more determined, this one is more a little distracted. There's
one that's more leader. There's one that's more of the focus. There's one more that's a little bit more fun. But they both were gangster.
Yeah, both of them were strong people, but they were strong differently. One planned, the other one acted.
Even the women that they chose were totally different.
Yes. Especially, but I thought the interesting part about this was about relationship. I don't think that's one of the things that's popped out at me in the movie. When you start looking at all these relationships that they had, you saw significance, like you saw male-female relationships and how they actually worked and built things together, whether it was the store at, you know, the Chinese, you know, characters, the store
in Bo.
Yes, whether it was cornbread and his wife there picking, you know, all these things.
The funniest things. She was like, "How much money?" You better go get out of here.
Right. How they work together to make it work, you know. and usually the guy was the one out front to go and do it, and she was behind supporting, but also saying, let's
You
do
better go
this.
get this. Let's go.
Exactly, let's do this. So they work together as a team, and you got a chance to see that, and it's like, oh, it's really, especially Black characters where you saw, actually work together, and that was very interesting to have
Well,
in there.
I
So
want to go back to that for a second. Especially I want to kind of focus on with Annie, the relationship with Stack. I thought that was in itself, seeing those two characters together. First of all, two Black characters, right?
mhm,
So that there was showing Black love, but then she is not what's known as classically like beautiful and what they always cast in movies. A bigger bone Black woman still being able to be beautiful and attractive and still have that relationship with a lead character. You don't see that a lot of times. And I thought that was amazing to see, to put that
mhm,
out there. Like, hey guys, no, we come in all shapes and sizes and all colors, and beauty is in every single one of them.
And in contrast to that, and that's the thing, you always see contrast. You see Seinfeld, where she
Yes,
is,
Haley Steinfeld, who's
yes,
who's
where she
smoke.
is, maybe her
She's quarter
mother.
Black.
Right.
She's
Her
quarter
mother
Black.
was biracial, right? And so therefore, now you have you have this darker, bigger woman, beautiful woman, and then you have this, like you say, a person
She's
who's
still Black
passing for
passing.
white,
She's
but
white
passing
passing,
for
yes.
white. And you have, and the twins choosing again these
Two
really
different
ideas who are very different, and that's a theme throughout it, choosing your choice, and choosing something that may look very differently. Like the twins were very different, but you know what? They were still twins. And these relationships, the significant part of the twins actually said, I love you.
Yeah, that was huge.
Both of them. I love you. I love you. I can go all over the place, but I love you. I can do all the things, but I love you. And that's what I'm saying. Whether it was the one passing for white, or whether the one who's, the non-traditional, but the beautiful Black woman, I love both of them. And that was really significant for both of the twins that I noticed,
Yeah. When we saw when Annie talked about it, about how much you left me and all this stuff, and he was like, you do not understand that we can't be together. I love you so much. My only job is to protect you. I'll need you to go out there and have this life, because if I love you, I can't drag you down. If you're with me, you're always going to be in trouble. We're always going to have the clan after us. And I thought that was significant in its time too, because once again, this is a time when you couldn't have interracial marriages. You couldn't have that interracial be together unless you're a famous person. There's the only way that it could get away with that. In the Deep South, that wasn't happening. It just was not going on.
Yeah, so it talks about how these relationships were really strong and committed, and they were more partnerships. And you saw a lot of that, throughout this movie, whether it's the relationship with the twins, the relationship between males and females, husbands and wives, or partners, or even in families. That was another thing. You saw family relationships all the way through, whether it was cousins. Remember, they were cousins, the twins.
Yeah, first you say they're cousins. Yeah.
They were cousins, and then you saw all this family connection.
Yes, they're cousins with Sammy. So Sammy was an interesting character in itself too. Yeah. I was talking to you backstage about the rebellious part of him. So so you saw he respected his father, because there's no way he knew he couldn't go do anything right without getting his quota. The idea of quota and the sharecropping is a huge point in this movie too. That everyone's out in the fields still picking cotton, and seeing what you picking cotton, seeing what that really means. People say that, right? But you don't understand what that actually meant. That means everyone out in the fields doing all that time, literally in that plant that has all those sticky parts and you that are poking you, and picking the cotton out. Understand what that really was and how terrible that is.
From sunrise to sunset.
Exactly.
But if you can go and do your quota, you can get your quota, you can go and do some other things,
Because you want because you have to hit a quota, because once again, sharecropping, that you don't own the land. You're trying to get to the point where you can own something. Black people didn't allow Black people to own land. No matter if they work that land all there still was this idea that you put this idea in front of this character in front of you, trying to say you can get to this land as long as you work it. you know, and that's
yeah.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Although you were promised 40 acres and a mule,
Mhm.
no, rather than give you your 40 acres and a mule, let's give you this land to work, but you don't own it, but you gotta produce this much in order to work it. So
Yeah.
that
To
wasn't
stay here, this to be your land, you need to produce this one. So you need to pay the piper. It's very much like France. You still have to pay me for your freedom. What?
yes,
That's not
yes.
mine.
Mhm.
I'm
Well,
not.
I
It's
don't
not given.
yes. And that's interesting that you mentioned that. I mean, France and that they, colonialized these countries in Africa, and said that you're free, but you're not really free because you have to sign this document and all your money has to come to me
Come to me.
first.
But
But you're
that's what
first.
sharecropping
But you're
is, right?
free.
You're
Right.
free, but all your money comes to me. So it's like I'm gonna let you do this, but all this money still comes to me first. So
Come to me first. And I
mhm.
determine what you can do. So that's yeah, and it's what 13 countries now in Africa who still
We're
13 to
still
14
paying.
countries who still
Still paying.
paying as of today.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy. But
interesting idea.
going back to Sammy, but his relationship with his father being a preacher, and him knowing it. So like I think that sign the scene when you see him talking to his father trying to get his guitar.
Hmm.
He asked him, the Bible verses, and he knew. He knew the
Yeah.
Bible. He knew the Bible inside and out. He needed to know. He didn't need to read the verses out of the Bible. He knew what was going on. He knew that. Yet his rebellious spirit, I feel like, was still something that was there. And they try to frame it in the point of is the music calling out to him,
Hmm.
but I feel
Hmm.
like it was a little bit the
Yeah.
world calling out to him.
No doubt. I don't necessarily see it as rebellion. I see it as coming of age, where you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision
And he
about the
made a
life you're
decision by
going,
the end.
the life you're going to live. Again, back to Robert Johnson, who had to make a decision. Back to these, you have to make a decision. It's about choice. Are you going to choose this way of life, or you're going to choose this way of life? It's on you to make that decision. And it sounds like with Sammy, boy, that life was calling him. It was
Well,
calling him from the
also,
beginning.
he didn't want to live that way. I mean, he said it multiple times when he was rolling around. With I think it was with Stack. He was like, I just don't want to live this way. I don't
Mhm.
want to, have to deal with all this sharecropping. I don't want to pick cotton my entire life. I'm looking at my
Right,
dad at Jedediah, and that's not the what life I want to live.
right.
So it's not just the music part. I love my music. I want to play my music, but I don't want to live like this. And that
Mm.
was caused him to kind of do that migration. No matter what, even after everything was taken from him, and his cousins were gone, and he had the worst night of his life, also the best life, but the worst night of his life. And he came back there, he still left because that's not the life he wanted.
Because it's all about the choices you make. Of course, I call it decision point. My company,
It's such a
but
possession company.
my company, Decision Point Council. But it's all about being at that point and making a decision about what you want your life. And that's again the significance of being in Clarksdale, the significance of really making decisions about what you want your life to look like. You have the world over here, you have God over here. You have morality over here, you have immorality over here.
Mhm.
You have your soul over here. You have of course, you have the world over here, and finally, you have God over here, and you have the
Yeah, the
devil
devil.
over here. Because the
Mhm.
devil was present. Whether they were running from the twins were running from the devils in Chicago, he said, and running back home, or we're going to talk about the devil in a little bit, soon.
No,
The
go ahead.
devil
Bring
himself.
that up right now. I think that the idea of the devil, that's a huge thing, especially that Remick and his part in this whole thing. And then the significance of it being Irish, and then the timing, the setting, all that stuff is huge. So go ahead.
Well, I do want to say before I get to the devil, to me it was the most beautiful display
Oh man.
of multiculturalism that I've seen in the movie in such a long time. To hear the expression of dance and music and culture, and you saw it across all these groups. When you saw the Black culture, and then you saw the Irish culture, the Chinese culture, the Italian culture, the
Exactly.
Native
Oh man, when
American culture.
Bo, and they're dancing, you saw the people, the Chinese people there too. Like they brought all the ancestors. It was their connection with the ancestors, and that music was Epic. Oh, I loved it so much.
To me, it was just it reached my soul to see such a thing like that on display, where you saw all the connectedness of all of the people, and music and culture and dance did that. Now, I'm going to make a psychological reference.
Okay.
There's someone called Carl Jung, Jung,
Okay.
and what he talked about is this term called collective unconscious. And what he says, that everybody in every culture have a connection, have certain stories, certain music, certain dance, certain cultural ideas that spans across every culture. It's just that it's below the surface and we have to connect to it. So actually seeing them do that, and the connection, dancing and singing all together and cultures overlapping, was just one of the most beautiful display of multicultural connection that I've seen in a movie in a long time.
And it was intentional. It wasn't something that just came in. Ryan Coogler, all the different music types. So we had the Mississippi blues, we had rock
Yes.
and roll, we had
Yes.
turntablism, right? We had hip hop, we had ragtime, we had traditional West African music. When you saw that was for me, that was great. You had trap music, you had G-funk, you had rap, you had opera, you had traditional East African music, right? You had rhythm and blues, you had jazz, and you had funk, all in the same thing in the music. That was,
you had,
not to mention, go ahead.
Chinese.
You had
Chinese music. You had Irish.
You had the Irish when he was doing that. I was like, man, look at him, he's getting it.
Yes. And that's what I mean. You had all this music in there, and then you have Native Americans there in there too.
Yes.
Such again, a group of people showing the connectedness of all of it. And you know what? And all these people were initially oppressed people.
All of them, 100%.
All of them were oppressed people. And but showing their connection, very much similar to, when Irish came here, no one wanted to be with them. Who did they live with?
They lived with
black people. They lived with the black people, and they got along just fine, because a lot of course, black people have some Irish in their blood, because
including
that's
us.
what they did. Yeah, exactly. That's where it was. It stayed with the black people, and that was just significant until, of course, the separation happened, when the Irish then, of course, ascended black people, and then didn't want to have anything to do with black people.
Well, it's the idea, the idea of the white culture came out there, and then that which
becoming
is a
white.
created idea. It's a totally created idea, and that's what you do. When I think the people in power realize that you don't want to lose power, so you have to be more inclusive. So you have to have some type of separation. So they continue to grab more and more people, and then got to the Irish people, and they became that idea, and then there was another separation again.
Yeah, so you had the Italian people becoming white.
Yeah.
Then now you had the Irish people becoming white. It was really movement from oppression to being part of the group, and that's what this is all about: moving, being part of the group. And now we can talk about the devil. The devil,
Okay. Oh, what do you want to start with the devil? Because I mean, the devil, who's always throughout the music, because they talked about it specifically, that when someone is playing the music and you have that connection to the ancestors, it's not just the ancestors that are listening. It's also the evil spirits. It's also demons. It's also the devil. So you bring all those things out when you have this unbelievable music. So you have that connection, but everyone's listening. I think, and Remick even said, the reason why he wanted to deal with this is like, I want to see my ancestors. Why? Because when Annie talked about it, she said, you understand, their souls are trapped. Their souls are trapped, and they're disconnected now from their ancestors. They can no longer see the people that they used to love. They can no longer deal with any of that stuff. So they can't experience it. So what called out for Remick is the idea that I can reconnect with my ancestors from this kid. If I change this kid, his music can bring my ancestors. I can see the people I used to love. Then Remick actually said that in the movie.
He did. Sure. And that's the thing. The music connects everybody, both good and evil. And it connects all of that. And Remick heard it, just like David said. Once the music is out there, it connects everybody, and everybody can hear it. And Remick heard it, of course. And then, of course, Remick was a vampire. And being the vampire who got away.
Can I put that there? But before we get there, the fact that the Native Americans tried to save him.
Try to say yes, you
Tried
did.
to save him. Like, I would love to know more about them. So, understand the Native Americans, were here, right? Before, and the people came over, and white people came over, and they started saying they discovered the land, whatever. But they brought their diseases. They brought all this stuff. They brought also vampires. There's no vampirism before before they came over. So that idea, they brought all that stuff, and then I want to know more about the Native Americans that were able to. Were they vampire hunters? Did they go around looking for this evil everywhere to try to kill it?
That's a story.
And then when they saw it, they saw the white people. They said, "Well, I tried.
Yes,
we're gonna go back to our people, and we're gonna go kill them from our lands." But we tried. And the sun's going down. So sundown go down is two things. You have the Jim Crow laws. Sunset, you need to get out of the streets. Martial law type of thing. One, yes. And then two is the vampire thing. And then they're like, "Well, we're going back to our land where we're safe."
Yes,
so I thought that's an amazing story right there.
That would be a movie by itself, the Native Americans, vampire, hunters, trying to save. But that's again interesting, trying to save white people from evil.
Yeah,
and being
lied to, and he just said, "Well, I tried, bro.
I tried." and then you saw this manifest destiny happening. Where now the expansion of America, and so the Irish moved all over the place, right? And that's really what's happening here. But the Native Americans trying to save them, and then of course they lied, and now this vampire starts to grow his people. That's what he said, grow his family, and so he changed two white people over to vampires, and that was very interesting vehicle to say that white people were the vehicle to spread evil.
Well, it's easier because I think that they're the majority, and they're the ones who didn't have any laws restricting them. So they were able to move in and out of different places, so they can do these things easier. If it was black people, you couldn't. If it was only black people, you probably couldn't go too far. You can't. Right. There's already segregation. There's only so far you could go. Yeah, them being the white people, that it was easier for them to move throughout.
Freedom of movement. And really, you saw this in Remick. Remick was able to move around amongst the white people, but not the Native Americans noticed some things, and they were actually after him. And of course, they were unknowingly sheltered by the white couple, who then became vampires themselves. It's just interesting to think about vampires. What do vampires do? They take your life away from you. And that's what they were doing. And then this is the vehicle where, so how I'm going to take this and make you become one of me. I'm going to take your life and you become my, what he said, family. That's what he said, right?
It's almost like integration.
But no, this is more like domination.
Or
you're no longer yourself.
Appropriation. Like, we're
appropriation.
Now appropriation. Yeah,
that's what I think. Matter of fact, I would say this is an example of appropriation. All of it is about appropriation. Now, I'm going to take this for you and I'm going to use it for me.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to make you become a part of me, but I'm going to be the leader. And that's exactly what the vampire did. And he said, "Come and join us," and he take their lives, and then you become a part of them. It's almost like leaving the spiritual world and becoming part of the evil world. I said it's like leaving the spiritual world and becoming part of the mainstream. Appropriate it. It's by appropriating what they need. I'm going to appropriate everything that you have. And many times, this is the other part. And many times you're going to invite me
in.
You're going to invite me.
And it's funny because think about it. So when they came to the door,
yes,
everyone was kind of questioning, and Annie told them, Annie and Mary said, "No, leave them outside." But then Mary got in her mind, you know what? I look like them. I can go talk to them and try to, see and test them and try to get the money. And because of the money, they went out and they went against what their right mind was to keep those out, you know, and she ended up bringing them in and bringing that evil back in from there. So, you know,
but isn't that the point?
Yeah, that's the point. No, I agree.
The point of it is you're going to chase after money. You're going to chase after fame. You're going to chase after sex. You're going to chase after fun. You're going to chase after all these, what they used to be called, the 7
deadly sins.
The deadly sins. Yeah, they used to be. But you're going to chase all, you're going to chase after fame, and you got to give up something in order to get that.
You trying to open up something that we never want to open up to today. We don't have enough time for that.
I'm just saying, but that's what she did. You had to give that up, and she went for the money, and she gave up her life.
Mm-hmm. But then it spread like a virus.
That's the thing.
You welcome her back in.
It couldn't spread until what?
Until what was it? Till Stack. Well, he was already in love with her, but it spread because you got that one person in who's going to be okayed into your group. Stack is going to come back with her. She's going to infect Stack, and then it affects everybody else.
But that's the point. She, again, passing for white, was able, again, white being in some ideas here, white being the vehicle to introduce evil and appropriation. You know,
I don't want to say white being to introduce evil, but I think that it definitely appropriation and losing your culture. And I think that was the thing. Her coming in, we were experiencing all the individual cultures in that music scene. You saw all those cultures being there, right? And then once you become a vampire, you lose all that.
Yes,
you lose all your culture. So it's appropriation, but it's also culture stealing. So I think that's exactly kind of what you're talking about, but that's exactly what it's, once again, another way to show what the world has been doing. That's exactly what they've done to their people. You lost your culture. You lost your way because you've been appropriated. You now believe you're this, and you forgot that you're supposed to be this.
Yes. Well, the only reason I use evil because it comes from the devil. That's what I was saying. It's the devil using these people to bring in his message or his lifestyle or his whatever, and that's what it used her as a way of getting
she
inside.
Could travel in because she could travel through and out. Yeah,
as a white female, well, as a appearing white female, because she wasn't, you know, passing.
Because if one person knew, she'll just be just like everybody else.
Exactly. So she passed in, and once she got in, that was it. And that's what happens. It spreads, and it spreads. And it took
your entire culture, and it steals all your culture away.
It's still all appropriated all. But then it's always someone who is knowledgeable and who is connected to her spirit, connected to the ancestors, connected to what is real. And she was able to say, stop. You know, and that's the importance of Black spirituality and Black, church and Black church, the importance of it. It was able to say, well, you know, let's slow it down a little bit. We can come on in, but not take over everything. And I think she was the example of that because she's the one who had the knowledge to say something is going on here that maybe.
Anna's the only one speaking facts, but But it's also interesting from her point of view of her having the idea, voodoo, whatever. But there's another part of black culture that is lost. Another part of spirituality that was kind of lost throughout the years.
Yes.
That's something that was there, especially in New Orleans. If you want to kind of focusing on that, Mississippi. This is what you had. I mean, where they were is very close to both New Orleans, Mississippi, and Arkansas, and all this stuff. So like, but her having that idea of voodoo and all that stuff, but a spirituality, a connection to ancestral things that we've had since West Africa. And things like that, bringing that on and having that connection actually saved lives. So when you think about Stack, how did Stack not get bit? Because he had the medallion that she
protection.
Gave. The protection that she gave him.
Yes, she did. Yeah, but that's the thing. Black spirituality is significant too. And I think what the movie did a really, really good job is really putting Black spirituality and Black religion, putting it together and recognize the importance of both of them and being able to deal with whether it's evil or appropriation or whatever, that really was some level of protection. And that was particularly for Stack, throughout his travels. So, and I thought, Andy, it was just, again.
Andy was with Smoke. And Andy was with Smoke. I'm sorry.
Andy was with Smoke.
Yeah,
okay, Smoke.
Yeah,
right.
It's my fault.
So with Smoke, then, to be able to do that and then to protect everybody because of that knowledge, and that was really significant. Okay, again,
there's a lot of other things we could talk about that.
It's a lot. It's a lot here. Culture, spirituality, relationships. Like we haven't even talked about, a couple other ideas, but this is just really, really important for people to go and see this movie, because
what he's done is he's planted seeds for us to have these conversations, to really discuss this stuff. But before we go, I wanted to talk about one last thing that I don't think a lot of people have noticed. So at the end of the movie, you see Stack. Well, I'm not even talking about the end credit scene, because the end credit scene is something we want to talk about last.
Post credit, okay.
But before we get there, so Smoke is about to deal with the Klan, right? And we all know what happened when he shoots and then kills most of them, and then he gets shot and or stabbed or whatever, and he bleeds out and all this stuff. But do you remember that the barn was locked from the inside, right? And Smoke was his rifle in the woods. Who was inside the barn?
Well, we now know who was inside the barn.
The only two that lived, right? Mary and Stack had to be inside the barn.
Yes.
And Smoke was able to do all this stuff because Mary and Stack were in the barn. They locked the door after he walked out. Then he took off his warding, his voodoo thing. He took it off once he left out of the barn after it was already locked. Because he didn't have to worry about it, because they couldn't bite him because he had it. And that we talked about, that Stack, Smoke made Stack promise that you can't hurt, you can't harm him, you can't harm Sammy, don't worry about anything. But so after everything ran and you saw Stack grab Mary and ran off, everyone else died. They didn't, because they were able to run into the barn. And that's funny, because so Smoke has actually saved his brother regardless.
Well, remember remember that scene where everybody was gone and they fought. The two twins had to fight. It was power and power, same, difference, and being able to finally overpower his brother and have the stake into his heart, and then it cuts.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We don't know what happened. We don't know what happened. All we know is
not in the movie.
All we know is this: all of a sudden,
But later you see
Smoke comes out. And we don't know what happened.
Yeah. Well, we see him. You see him running out. You see Stack run out and grab Mary.
Yes.
Remember at the end, and he takes her somewhere. Everyone else that was out there burned.
Right.
But not them. And that's how they survived. I thought that was interesting in itself, because even though they were having that stuff, he still saved his brother regardless.
So you jumped ahead when
I had to, because I know we got to get out of here because it's not too long. But.
Okay. Well, quickly. But the idea that the KKK sold them the land, land and the building,
steal their money.
To come back and come and still, again, appropriation. It's all about trying to, now that you did this, we're going to come back and we're going to come and kill you and take all your money.
Yep.
And that's like, wow. It seems like a lot of that is throughout. And of course, they were ready for it. He was ready. He had the guns and killed them. And,
sacrificed himself. And then, that scene when he was able to grab his son.
His daughter.
His daughter. And
because we didn't talk about that between he and Annie. The whole idea they had a child that died, that drove the wedge between them, and for him to leave. He said, I have too much pain here, and that's interesting about the twins. and even about life, sometimes you have to leave, but oftentimes you will come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what they were doing, coming back. And
Love
even when
brought them
that
back, and for
love
different
and
reasons,
pain,
and
love and
pain.
pain.
Yeah, that's their
It's like
connection to that land, to
it's
that
like
place.
sunshine and rain.
Oh my God. All right. So I know I mean, we could probably talk about this for a long time.
Let me end it up there to talk
Okay.
about the post credit scene.
Yes.
Not just the end, but the post credit.
Mm-hmm.
The post credit when Buddy Guy or Sammy,
Buddy Guy, the blues legend of Chicago.
The blues legend of Chicago.
That's who Sammy is. Oh, that's awesome.
Sammy said he wanted to go to Chicago because the twins went to Chicago, and Sammy runs to Chicago. Well, we didn't say Sammy went back to his dad in the church. Realized exactly what, and he chose. I want the world. I want to make that choice. I choose this over this. And he chose success, the world.
Or he just didn't. I just think he just didn't want that life.
No, I think it was a choice. And that's what I think it's all about. You got to make a choice. You're going to either choose this or this. Which choice you're going to make?
I just don't think it's as simple as that, because he did choose it. But I think it's more than just, it's not just, do I want to sit here and live my life like this, or do I want to follow my dreams and go do something else? You know?
Well, that's interesting. You see it that way. I don't see it. I just see like all of them. It's everybody got to make a choice with the devil. Are you going to follow the devil or not?
But I don't know if is it following the devil, or is it also looking at what the devil what's there already? Because you still have sharecropping. You still have the Jim Crow South. You still have all that stuff. Now, it's funny because Stack and Smoke said it's just the devil here. It's still devil. It's still the devil's still there in Chicago. It's just the devil here. But Sammy didn't know that. He heard him say that. Yeah, yes, he did. He heard it, and and that's why the twins kept on pushing Sammy to go back. This is your last night here. You're going back to the church. We're not allowing you. If you come back here again, I'm going to kick your butt or I'm going to kill you. So you're not going to do it. So they're trying to push him back because they already knew the world.
Exactly.
But he still said, I would rather deal with that than deal with this sharecropping. Because
I don't think it has
I think that also it's
the life. It's the life. It's all about the desire. Am I going to choose my desire over anything? Remember, his dad told him, let go of the guitar. He's in the church. Let go of the guitar. He had to either choose the church.
But it's not just the church. It's also the lifestyle that comes with it. It's the lifestyle being there, being a sharecropper, still there. That's still part of it, regardless.
No, it's the church. It's choosing God or the devil.
I don't think it's as simple as that. It's not as simple as that.
Throughout the movie, it's been that simple.
So God wants you to be a sharecropper? No. God wants you to work in the fields? I think it's more complex. I'm just saying it's not single. I just don't think it's singly just one thing or another.
I don't think he's really saying anything about the sharecropping. It's like the lifestyle. Which lifestyle are you going to choose? Are you going to choose this or are you going to choose this? Your choice. And that's what he came down to. Just like the whole parable about Robert Johnson.
But he didn't.
You got to make your choice. Make your choice.
He didn't sell his soul to the devil. It's still understand for him. It's also the idea of this could be hell for me. Living here still, I think you have to living here under these rules, under these laws, under the picking the cotton and all those things. That could be a personal hell for himself too. And then losing my music, and then losing because he already had his mind made up that he wanted to go to Chicago before he even had anything to do with the music or the playing or the devil or that night. He wanted to leave because he hated that life.
No, he was a chosen person.
He was, but he still once again he hated the life he did to do. He said, I hated the cotton. Okay. I hated having to do all this stuff.
See, that's a disagreement because he didn't act like he hated picking the cotton. He didn't act that way because he just
it's just a thing he had to do. This is something
exactly. It wasn't like he hated it or anything. It's just something he had to do to get to where he wanted to go.
So you don't think the scene in the train station where he had to watch what he was doing, he had to watch these white people, he had to watch all that stuff. He didn't want to deal with that either.
Sure, of course. Nobody wants to deal with it.
But my point is that it's multi-layered. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, okay,
It's multi-layered.
Yes, I hear your point. However, my point is no, it's choosing between God or your own desires. And and that's why he held on to the broken guitar, and he had to make a decision. And he walked out, and his dad said, "Let it go, son, let it go." And you know what? He didn't, and he chose it and got in the car and drove. Now, the last scene with coming into Chicago. He's in Chicago, and now you see Sammy playing the blues and playing all these types of music. He's playing, and he's famous, and he still has the scar that he had that day. Exactly 60 years later. It was 60 years later, October 16th, 1992. And of course, he's playing, and now he's a legend. He got fame and fortune. And what happens when he sits at the bar? The guy comes to him and said, 2 people are asking for you. And he said, okay. And then the guy said, you can come on in. He invited them in. Once he invited them in, who comes in?
Yeah, but he knew who it was.
Well, I'm not sure whether he knew, but once they walk in the door, he knew. It was that?
Yeah, you would say Stack and Mary?
Stack and Mary. I thought you were going to say it. So I was like, Stack and Mary coming in, who escaped in the barn, as you were saying, in the barn, in which Smoke made sure that they lived, and they come back 60 years later, and they promised not to harm him, and they didn't harm him for 60 years because he chose this to follow his desires to Chicago, and that was his significant part. And a lot of people, when I watched it, a lot of people walked out and they never saw the post credits.
Yeah, I know. I saw it. The type of people, I'll tell you what type of people actually stayed and the other people that walked out. That's interesting in itself. But see, the only reason I don't think, I don't know, I think it's interesting to see where he came in 1992 with, the gear he's wearing, the Coogee sweater, and very hip hop, very interesting, and Haley had or Mary had her big earrings, hanging out with them, doing all the stuff. That was interesting how they adjusted to the culture, adjusted to it, and I always thought they were the devil, and no matter what, they were the point where that's the devil coming back. And then it's funny because Sammy seemed okay with it being turned, like okay at that point, and that's when he said, "No, I made a promise to my brother, that I would never harm you." Also, and then he talked about that was the greatest day of my life too, but also the saddest day of my life because it's the last day I saw my brother. That was it.
And the
sunrise. Yeah, because he's a a vampire in itself. So I think that's interesting. And I've heard talk of a sequel, and I would love to see a sequel, but I don't know if I want to see it as a prequel and see about those Native American vampire hunters, or do I want to follow them and see where they go from there, and what are you saying about today's culture in the last 35 years?
Oh, how they became, you see the prequel, how they became Stack and House and all the stuff that they did in order to get there is very interesting. The other part I do want to mention before we end here is, remember that Stack and Mary, they became vampires. They became the devil because they were turned. And so that's the interesting part. I always wonder, then why aren't they turning a lot of other people to vampires? Because you know what? Because a lot of people are vampires. And that's the point. We live in the world full of vampires. And we have to watch out because people are trying to appropriate who we are and what we are. And so we need to be careful and mindful.
They look like you.
Yeah, exactly. They might look like you, but you know what? They can't come in until you do what?
Let them in. You gotta invite them. So
you gotta invite them. So watch who you invite in. That's the thing. That's a wonderful movie. I understand why it's sinners. It's all about sinners, not about those who choose the spiritual route. This is about the sinners, and that's why the movie is called Sinners, from my perspective.
Okay, well, So there's some parts that we disagree on. There's some parts that I definitely agree with. I think overall, there's a lot of things we missed on this thing. Because I mean, we didn't talk about the idea of the Chinese, being there with Grace and Bo, and how their connection, and then now you got World War II and what they're going to have to go through, and all stuff. Or but what happens to their daughter? What happened? We didn't really get on Delta Slim and him sacrificing himself for Sammy, and how the old saved the young. I lived my life and I sacrificed myself for you. There's a lot of things that we could get into, but we're going to have to be able to do that another time because I don't want to be too long. We can talk about this all day.
Because I do want to talk about the Chinese couple. That was fantastic and historical significance. All of it. Go and watch this movie. Comment to what we're talking about, and if maybe you have additional questions, we can talk about it a little bit more.
Definitely, you heard him, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. For my dad, once again. Once he gets his stuff, he'll be in all the descriptions. I'll let you know exactly where he's going to be. Pay attention, enjoy it, like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys later.